Hello everyone, welcome to day 10 out of 20 of Cook for Victory. My name is Maddie.
And my name is Millie, and we are cooking tonight at Cookery School at Little Portland Street.
Little history about, I don't know what I was going to say. I've been a pastry chef for over 10 years in Australia, and I have spent my last 3 teaching here at Cookery School.
I'm from London. I did my professional training here at Cookery School, and before that was a private chef in Tuscany.
And tonight, and kind of the past 10 nights, and then the future 10 nights, our job has been
every night,
every night for all the 20 nights. We're trying to get you to a bit more enthusiastic about cooking at home, seeing that it's not as awful and as hard as everyone makes it out to be. It's fun, it's fresh, it's delicious, but most of all, it's simple and something that you can put together quickly. We're doing all this stuff within an hour with you every single night.
Yeah.
And tonight we've got a good one, quick, easy one.
Yeah, we're doing lovely scrambled eggs. We're going to do a quick scramble for when you're in a rush, a lovely slow custody scramble. We're going to do 2 types of fried eggs. Then we're going to do cheese and herb scones to have with it, and a lovely soda bread. So 2 styles of quick breads.
Yeah, so we're going to do something that you can really bash out quite quickly if you want to. These, like the breads, are really super simple, and same with the eggs, and then the slower, nice version of each.
And you're on your way to like a basic afternoon tea, you know?
Yeah, afternoon tea. Oh, brekkie as well. So to start with, as per usual, we've got to do a bit of chopping. Not too much tonight, but we've got plenty of herbs to go. So grab your... We're doing parsley, spring onions, and thyme for our scones. So we're doing cheese and herb scones. And then we've got a bit of chives to go with our eggs. But they can be a nice mix of anything, usually something oniony in your scones. So like the spring onions or the chives, something soft, and then something super aromatic like the thyme, but they can be up to you. I would stray away maybe from rosemary. It's a bit hardy, but everything else usually goes in quite lovely.
And partly why we love thyme is because once you've stripped it off the stem, you barely even have to chop it up.
There's not too much chopping to do at all.
So if you're dealing with thyme, you can just hold it towards the top and pull down, and that should give you fairly fine little pieces of mainly just the leaves and the really tender stems, I guess, at the very top. You can still just bunch it all together and give it a rough chop.
And I'm doing the same with the parsley that we've done, I feel, a million times over. I'm rolling it up nice and tight and just following my fingers that are underneath back along, and then doing my favorite pizza cut back and forth.
So the reason we're getting rid of these stems is they're just quite tough and woody. They just won't really break down, especially in the very quick cook they're going to have in the oven. And this is a good point, especially if they are a little slow to warm up. Pop your ovens on now. So our soda bread's going to go in at 180, is that right?
180.
And your scones 230 in the recipe. So get your ovens preheating now. You can do one at a time, of course, if you haven't got 2 ovens that go at different times.
Well, if you're doing both, good on you. But if you're just doing one, you can stick to whatever you're doing. For us, we're going to do the same. Hot and fast, these breads should be cooking, particularly scones. This is a good cheat dinner, actually. If you feel like you haven't got much at home, this will get you there quite quickly. A little bit of greens on the side and you're done. I'm just doing a very quick chop of the parsley, and same with the spring onions and everything. They don't need to be super small.
Right.
Back. I think we've done spring onions before, but you just want to, if there is any super dry bits, just peel that off, because it will kind of just get harder in the oven or in your mix. So peel that all off and you can get most of your spring onion in here. We're just going to top and tail just a little bit.
So this doesn't actually have to be extremely fine. Just want it small enough where there aren't any giant leaves or any big bits of stem.
And I'm just peeling off this super dry bit from my spring onion.
So whenever we're chopping, especially something that is quite small and you don't want to get your fingers involved, you're either going to do the claw, like Maddie's about to do, or you're just going to have your hand stop the knife and you're just going to be moving your knife back and forth with everything way out the way of the blade. When I scrape, I use my friend Jeffrey, a little bench scraper, just to make sure I'm not swiping things off with my fingers, keeping them again well out of the way of the knife. And we're starting to build up our sort of dry ingredients for our scones. So I'm going to put my thyme, my parsley and my spring onions all together in the same bowl.
And I will say this is one of those times where you can go pretty heavy on the herbs. It just adds to the flavour of the scones.
And lastly, I've got some chives. This is just for later on, but if you didn't have spring onions and you did have chives, they are sort of interchangeable in this situation. So with chives, you want to keep them really, really tight together. Sometimes I'll even keep the little elastic band that they come with on, just to keep them tightly tucked. But you just want to try and chop them as finely as you can with a really sharp knife if possible, because it means you're just not bruising them, you're just going straight through and you can carry on with all your cuts. So I've got my nails nicely tucked under, and you don't really need that many chives to do a really nice garnish. They just seem to expand a little like the cabbage we did the other day.
They come out of nowhere. They look like nothing, and then all of a sudden you've got a huge bowl of chives. So we've got our nice little mix of herbs there for our scones. So that's our parsley, spring onion and thyme, and that's ready to go in the mix, and then our chives are for later on. So this is kind of going to go aside for now, and that, can't believe it, but that's all our chopping done for tonight.
For the whole
night. Chopping boards away.
Compared to when we did veggie bolognese and we chopped about 100 things. Right, nearly there.
Depending on what you are doing, so if you're doing scones or cheese and herb scones, we'll talk to you about sweet scones anyway, but for tonight we're doing the savoury version. I've got all my ingredients for the soda bread. Kind of here you might need some throwing flour. If you've got a Jeffrey, that's awesome. If not, you can use your hands, no problems. You'll need some extra milk just in case, so it's a little bit different every day. And you'll need a nice clear bench to make a mess on, of course. So,
sorry.
Yes. We've got all our ingredients. We've got a nice clear bench. We've got some throwing flour. We're going to get a Jeffrey. And of course, we're going to make a mess. Rule number 1.
For you, Jeffrey.
For me. And for me. Beautiful. Other things you need for mixing. We're going to use a fork for mixing tonight. It's not really like a dough or anything. Both of these breads, so our soda bread and the scones, they're the same technique, which I'll talk about in a tick once we've got everything ready. So ingredients, a little bit same but different. Mill has just some normal white flour. They will both have either bicarb or baking powder. So that's your raising agent. It's what's going to give it lift in the oven. So this is not yeasted breads. These are called quick breads. Yes, they're called quick breads. So we've got some cheese, those herbs that we just cut. Both of us tonight, instead of butter, are using a neutral oil. If you're using butter at home, you can rub it into your flour at this stage. But what we're both going to do simultaneously is create kind of a wet and a dry bowl with a nice big glass jug.
Hopefully done.
So it looks like I've got a bit of a mess here, but I'm using, for the soda bread, I've got a good amount of wholemeal flour. So on your recipe it says you can do all white, you can do 50-50 or a little of both. It's kind of up to you. I've got literally 50-50. So 120 grams wholemeal, 120 grams of regular flour. This is our beautiful throwing flour. And we've got a good pinch of salt all going in.
So if you're doing scones, salt in as well.
And then your baking powder and your bicarb should go through a sieve because
if
they're
I just
really
knock mine
lumpy.
out,
Yeah.
you can see I've got
Really
pieces
big
already. They might break down, but you also might end up with a lump, which is never very delicious to bite into a big piece of baking powder.
Biting into bicarb that's been cooked in your bread
So
and gone
awful.
through the oven is really not a nice time. So good to give that a sieve. And then in terms of ingredients again, so I've got my lovely wholemeal flour. I also have some buttermilk. And buttermilk you can buy. That's for your soda bread. If you're doing the scones, you can use buttermilk if you have it lying around. It's not very common though. Buttermilk you can buy. If you're in a pinch, you can use milk with a little bit of lemon juice. It just thickens it up and it helps to kind of soften the crumb.
And the last of my dries is going to be my lovely chopped herbs and also my cheese.
So for me, if you're doing the soda bread, I've got basically all your dry ingredients. And meal is very similar. So flour, for me, wholemeal flour if you're using it, baking powder or bicarb, sugar, salt, everything that is not wet. And then for Millie, what have you got?
I've got cheese, salt, baking powder, flour, and my chopped herbs. So I'm going to give this just a gentle mix to this point. So Maddie, why would I not want to put this in with my wets, for example?
If it is the last thing that you're mixing in, you tend to over mix it. And so for both of these, like I said, the mixing technique is really, really similar in that we do not want to over mix this. In fact, we're going to go so far as to say we're going to under mix it. In the bowl, we're going to mix it to 80–90%, so it's looking pretty rough, pretty haggard, because we know that we're going to tip it out on the bench and work it a little on the bench as well, so that will finish it off. If you mix this a lot, as soon as you add your wet ingredients, so your oil and your buttermilk or your regular milk, if you keep on mixing, it will get super, super tough and you've basically just made a rock. So we want this to be super light, super crumbly, not tough and chewy. It's talking about gluten. So when we did our bread, we kneaded the heck out of it. We were on the bench for minutes or hours, or it felt like hours. That was to get gluten. And we really, really want that for bread that has yeast in it. But these breads that don't have any yeast, we're going to mix it as little as possible. It's a kind of a good, very generic rule. If it's got baking powder in it, you do not want to mix it at all, like really, really low amount of mixing. If it's got yeast, you need to mix it a lot. Very, very generic rule there if you're wondering.
So let's just do a quick recap between the ingredients we have in our bread and the ingredients we have in our quick breads. So you can go first with yours and then I'll talk about mine.
I have my white flour, my wholemeal flour, and again, you don't have to use wholemeal flour, you can do it all white. I've just chosen 50-50. A little bit of sugar, I think that's a classic, and it brings something extra special, I will say. Salt and your bicarb or your baking powder in there, sieved if you have it, you need to sieve it.
So very similar, but instead of bicarb or bicarbonate soda, I've got a little bit of baking powder, salt, my dry herbs that we chopped, and then also a little bit of cheddar cheese. Suppose you could use something like Parmesan, but like a nice dry cheese that isn't going to release a lot of water, like mozzarella or... I always think of mozzarella.
They're all good.
Soft
Yeah, but
cheese or
something that's not too watery.
And it also stays nice and separate in here because it is so dry, which is great.
Lovely. So yeah, depending on your ingredients, they might be dry or they might go in with your liquid if you were doing, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a wet ingredient. Something liquid, but these are all dry. So we have a bowl of dry ingredients. We've both got our bowl of dry ingredients, and I'm going to give mine a little toss as well.
Hand whisk, so you can use fork or you can get your hands dirty at this stage. And then going on to wets, I've got milk, just a egg, and then some rapeseed oil. So again, I could rub in my butter into this stage, just like I have kind of with the cheese, and you'd end up with something that looks a little like breadcrumbs, sort of quite fine breadcrumbs, well mixed in.
And we're using our oil today, mostly because if you rub it in, one, it's an extra step, which is kind of like, but the other thing is if you're using butter, I don't think you can really tell the difference. And when you see the amount of butter that we're going to put on them when they come out of the oven, you definitely can't taste the difference.
No, not at all.
These breads are made to put other things on them, so you can't necessarily taste the difference between the butter and the oil. And in terms of what you're getting at the end, they do the same thing. So they're making it, a little bit fattier, a little bit melt in your mouth. So the fats and the butters are same in terms of what you get in the end, and it just makes it easier for mixing. So all we need to do now is put all our wet ingredients together. I do not have an egg, so I'm just going straight in with my rapeseed oil, and then I'm going to add my buttermilk to it. And at this stage, the liquid that you add can be a little bit different every day. So have a little bit of extra milk on standby, just in case you need to add some more.
So I'm going to crack my egg, give it a quick beat at this stage. Again, you don't want to be cracking your egg into this dry bowl because then you're going to start to have to mix it more and more than necessary. So I'm going to start with a quick beat, and then I'm going to go in with my oil and milk. Doesn't need to be fluffy or foamy or anything, but you just want to break up all those bits of egg. It's looking good. And now I'm going to add the oil. And then the milk. So this is my wets.
So all the while we're still keeping our dry ingredients and our wet ingredients separate. You've noticed neither of us have started mixing our doughs at all, because the more we mix separately now, the less we have to mix it when they're together, so we don't over mix it. So I've got my buttermilk and my oil. Millie's got her egg, oil and milk, and still neither of us has started mixing. We're still both only wet and dry, completely separate at this stage.
And the other thing is, if your ovens aren't preheated, you may want to hold back for another 5 minutes, just because as soon as we add these two together, they're going to start to react. And then we're going to get sort of lift on the bench when it should be happening in the oven. So you want to make sure your oven is preheated, you've got your trays ready.
This is the stage. You need to
pause
be
at the
prepared.
stage if you're not ready.
You get yourself,
and we are ready.
a Jeffrey, you get yourself your mixing utensil, you turn your oven on, you get your throwing flour, you get your trays prepared with paper, because from here on out, these are called quick breads for a reason. This is going to be
Speed.
a 5-minute job, absolute maximum. So you need everything ready. One, because your hands are going to get really dirty as well. So you don't want to go faffing about turning on your oven, all this type of stuff. The quicker we mix these, the quicker they get in the oven, the better they are. And Millie and I are both going to be mixing the same in our bowls and a little bit on the bench. It's going to be the exact same technique for both. So whatever you're doing at home, you can watch either or. They're both going to be the exact same technique.
And of course, if you wanted to make sweet scones, you just take out the cheese and the herbs. You could maybe add a teaspoon of sugar if you wanted to, but usually we don't even add any sugar.
Because
just add some lovely sweet cream and some jam, and it's just
because
perfect.
we always add a lot of jam and cream on top, and it doesn't need the
butter.
sugar inside, or butter as well. So finally, we're ready. I've got my dries. I've got my fork. In terms of what you're mixing it, try really hard not to mix like you're bashing about a dough.
No kneading.
Yes, no kneading. We're kind of doing
it's
our
Monday
best.
night, so calm night.
Without the liquid so far, we're doing our best to kind of like, it's almost like a cut and fold or something similar to that. I imagine my fork is drawing a little circle inside a big circle, and the big circle is the bowl. So, but the main thing is you're just not trying to beat it too much. We're going to try and incorporate the liquid while it soaks it up without kneading it, because kneading, so like we did our bread, is what's going to create the gluten. It makes them tough, it makes them chewy, and it also stops them from getting a lot of lift in the oven.
So if I needed this, what would happen?
If you needed this, what would happen? You can create a really large brick that you can throw at somebody that you don't like, because that is genuinely what it will make, yes. So, and again, these breads, they are very, very quick, but they're good for like a very set amount of time. So these ones are best fresh, like kind of just from the oven, and then tomorrow, good for toasting, and that's about it. So they have their pros and cons. They're quick as heck, because we're going to cook them like 10 minutes and about 20-25 minutes for the soda bread, so because it's going to be all in one dump. So let's get mixing, and if you remember that I said the liquid is different every single time. So I'm going to put in most of this liquid and be happy that I know that that's the right amount, and Millie's going to do the same, and then we can always add a touch as we need it. We want to go for something that we can form on the bench, so not a soup is what I'm saying.
But on the flip side, if you add in just half your mix, give it a really good mix, and you add the other half, you're going to start to make too much gluten and it might become tough. So go about, what, 80% minimum?
Yeah, most. It's going to be really, really close. The recipes are usually pretty accurate.
So.
And again, I'm kind of just doing this cut and fold, or a small,
gentle.
very, very gently, trying to get all the liquid picked up so that I can see what the consistency is like. And I'm already saying, oh, this is very, very, very dry. I can see there's just big chunks of flour at the bottom that haven't really picked up any liquid. So
Thinking about mine, Miss Maddie?
I think yours is a little bit dry as well. So I'm going to definitely go with all my liquids. So that's all the oil and all the buttermilk. And then we're going to see what it looks like and see if maybe I need a tiny, tiny touch of just milk at the end there.
I think I am pretty good. While there are big dry patches in here, if I touch it, it is like really, really soft and moist. So I know once I've kind of pat it out on the bench, done a little fold, I'll show you later, then it should be perfect. I think I'm good.
I'm rotating my bowl as well, because that will help me kind of see what it looks like and get okay. In terms of consistency, if you can see this, it's all together. So there's no really, really big dry bits. So it's all kind of soaked up that liquid. In terms of for the soda bread, I'm stopping mixing there. Even though I know that looks a little bit raggedy?
Ragtag.
Yeah, that's a good word. I know that I'm going to just form it a little bit on the bench, so there's no big chunks of flour on the bottom. It's all kind of sticking together. In terms of consistency, I'm really happy with that. Really, really happy. And now, this is the mucky bit.
This is all right for you?
Yes. Plenty of flour on your bench.
So, if you look at mine, again, they're both very, very like barely mixed. I'm just gonna let mine sit for a sec while we show you soda bread and then we'll come back to it. But they should not even look like, they shouldn't look like a bread dough. They shouldn't be bouncy or springy or even stretchy at all.
Absolutely not.
They shouldn't really have any strength.
So
if they have strength, it means they have gluten.
Upside down, completely. Everything upside down.
And this is a good time to use the little curved edge of your Jeffrey if you have got one. Our favourite tool in baking.
Tool.
The flat edge is really good for like scraping and cutting, but not so good for scooping out of bowls.
Now, even though I know it looks really ugly at this stage, we're still going to try just a little bit of flour. I'm still not kneading it. I'm kind of going to encourage it. So I'm kind of going to attempt to squeeze it into what I want it to be. So for this, we want it to be a circle or a dome. I'm going to even see what it looks like on the other side. Make sure it's got plenty of flour on the bottom. This one, you don't want to be kneading too much at all, and you want a good amount of flour on the bottom to make sure that it's not going to stick to anything.
And you are not forcing it, you're being very soft.
If
patting.
anything, it's still the same lump of dough that I turned upside down. I just gently softened the edges a little bit. I encouraged it into a dome shape, but I would say it's still the same mass that I tipped upside down.
Gentle
I didn't knead it, I didn't turn it inside out, I didn't fold it in half, I didn't do anything like that. I kind of just used the flour to soften the edges and to help it cook evenly. It's very traditional, but it also helps it cook. If we put this in the oven in a high heat without the dash marks that I'm about to do, it will take a little bit longer to cook and potentially dry out. So what helps that is if you do and I just ran my Jeffrey through some flour to make sure it doesn't stick. You can also use the back of a knife, also really anything, a butter knife, just anything to make a nice, good, deep score. Because what that will do is the heat can go straight to the center, and so it can cook quite quickly from there, as opposed to having to cook the whole thing and potentially dry it out. And then very, very gently, if you've got plenty of flour on your bench, this should be a cinch. We're going to pick this up, pop it on here, and that is your beautiful soda bread.
Look at that.
So in terms of,
ooh, she's sliding.
Almost sliding. In terms of the amount, it says on your recipe as well, it's quite deep.
It's about 2/3 of the way through, isn't it?
If not a little bit more. So that will mean we kind of don't really have to cut this later on.
You sort of tear it apart.
Yeah, it's more of a tear apart. So if you're doing a massive one, you can do an even deeper score to make sure it's going to cook. But this size, you don't want it to be cooking for too long. So we want this to cook as quick almost as the scones. So this beautiful baby is ready to go in the oven. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash, and then you can demonstrate some beautiful, beautiful scones.
So switching over to scones, once again I've got my little bit of bench flour just to make sure when I put this down it's not going to stick straight to the table. And this one we're going to portion up into nice squares. Sweet scones traditionally are circles, but this one I'm just going to chop with my Jeffrey. So again, I'm scooping out my mix and popping it on that floured surface. So you can see some wetter patches. I'll move this out of the way. Some slightly wetter bits and some slightly drier bits. It doesn't look fully mixed at all, and I'm just going to gently coax it into a sort of rectangle or square. So I'm going to use a little bit more flour just so it's not going to stick to me or my hands. Scooch everything in. How does that look to you, Maddie?
So how are you getting at that shape?
I'm being very gentle. I'm just pushing it down, but I'm also using my Jeffrey as a sort of guide. And every now and then I'll just dust it off as well, because it does tend to get a touch sticky.
At this stage, if you have a beautiful smooth dough and it's not
jagged on the edges
like this, I can almost guarantee that you've overmixed it. It should not be like beautiful and smooth in any sense of the word. It should always be a little bit rough because that means you've done your best not to over mix it. So you haven't created that super strong gluten strand and it's not going to be tough and chewy. It's still going to get light and super soft crumb in the oven.
So the sort of signature of a scone is that fact that it pulls apart. So I'm just going to divide it in half, and I am going to manufacture that pull apart part by just folding it in on itself. So I'll just dust off the excess flour, push it onto itself, and we want this quite high. It just means that they are going to puff up nicely. I'm not going to make them absolutely ginormous because I want them to cook nice and quickly in the oven. But again, just going to pat it down. How tall would you say that is? A couple of...
I would say that's 4 or 5 centimeters. If you're using a cutter, so if you are doing traditionally sweet scones, you would use a cutter, and savoury scones you would have some sort of like sharp shape, so like a square, rectangle or triangle. If you're using a cutter, you can make them quite high because by the time you push the cutter down it loses a little bit of height. But for us, because we're using our Jeffrey today, it can be a little bit lower because we know that they're going to rise up anyway. Either way, savoury scones with all the cheese and all of the herbs should make at least 8. If you're doing the sweet version, so you don't have the cheese and herbs, it makes 5 or 6.
There's also much less waste on this one because we're not cutting out of circles. I can just trim off, so that's what I've just done on one side. I've trimmed off one edge. This is looking very straight already. This one a little less straight. So you're kind of making what was a little bit of a jaggedy, ugly rectangle into something much more beautiful. And I'm just using my Jeffrey, or you could use a knife. On a chopping board as well would be absolutely fine. And I'm just cleaning this off every time because it is a little bit wet and sticky. So now it's very easy to divide into 8. I'll go half, and you can use your Jeffrey to score it. They might look a little bit tiny, but they will puff up as well in the oven.
Huge,
so make them smaller than you think. And then I'm going to have one.
And scones you don't want too big anyway, because the bigger they are, the longer you have to cook them, and they kind of dry out. So if you've got a massive scone, maybe you think is really awesome, but actually it just means you have to cook it a lot longer, and therefore you have like a really thick kind of crust on the outside because you dried it out. So these are meant to be cooked very quickly at a high temperature.
Hard and fast.
Hard and fast.
A little bit like our roasting, to be honest, that we've been doing all the time over the last 10 days. There you go. All right. So yes, and then you'll get a couple of chef scraps, which will just be like slightly ugly, but if we're not going to mix them too much, they should still be very tender. So with my nice ones, line them up. Ones. And I actually had a tiny bit of mix left over from earlier, which I'm going to put on top. This just sort of absorbs a little bit of that flour, so it's not going to be quite so dry, and it'll help with the browning. But if you don't have any, you can...
A little bit of milk is absolutely fine.
Yeah, a little bit of milk, a little bit of cream.
Yeah, anything just to kind of, wetten, and it does make it a little bit beautiful in the oven as well. So get a bit of shine, a bit of gloss, and also absorb any excess flour that you've used on the bench.
And then my scraps, I will just barely coax into just a little ball.
And that will be our snack that we will eat when no one is looking.
That's your one to... It's kind of like the baker's dozen. It's one to check that you've got your seasoning all delicious and it's lovely and tender.
So again, if you've made these really big, you're kind of working against yourself a little bit because you need to cook them for longer, and then you dry them out and they're not going to rise as nicely. So small bites, and you'll be shocked at how big these do get in the oven as well. They're going to get quite large.
And the only reason I've done 3, 2, 3, and I've kind of spaced them apart, just because these all have a little bit more room either side of them than if I did them in rows. That's just
Offset,
a nice little baking trick.
Okay, so realistically, if these take any longer than 15 minutes, they're starting to dry out. So we're going to go probably 10 or 12 minutes, and then we're going to rotate them, check them. As soon as they've got a good colour on top, a good colour on bottom, they are absolutely done. You can always check inside your little chef snack there to see what it looks like inside. But these are going straight in for 10 to 12 minutes. Oh. Beautiful. And so the perfect balance to quick breads is eggs. So
also quick,
yes. So Millie is the queen of eggs. She can do eggs 80 ways. I'm
But
saying
there's
that
only
very,
about 20
very
that I like.
confidently. But for tonight, we're doing 4 separate ways, are we? Or 5 separate ways?
Yeah, so we've had raw eggs on my side, we've got raw flour everywhere, so a good moment to clean down your bench, get rid of everything that's there. I'm going to grab myself some frying pans
And
we will get started. So, we'll start with the scrambled eggs just because they take a tiny bit longer. So get your pan just on a very, very low heat. I'm going to start mine on 2 just so it's ready to go. And then my second one for later on. So, right. Thank you.
I'm going to have pots and pans absolutely everywhere.
Pots and pans everywhere. So a good thing to have at this point is a fork or even nice little tiny whisk
Magic
if you've
whisk.
got one. I'm also going to grab myself a little scrap bowl just for all my little bits of eggshell. Whoop. Right, do you want to do some cracking with me? So the key to this bit is we're trying not to get them foamy, but we don't want any big streaks of egg whites. So that's what we're going to be, thank you, working towards in this moment. So cracking eggs. Easy when you know how. Most people go on the sharp side or the sharp side here, but you end up shooting tiny fragments of shell straight inside. If you crack it flat, you tend to just break the membrane, but you don't go right through the egg, so it's just a little bit neater. And then you can just dig your thumbs in, open it, get rid of your shells.
And we do say this a lot, it is kind of good to go 1 egg at a time. I know we're only doing 3 eggs, a couple eggs, but it's just in case you do eggs in this economy. They are expensive. If you've got a bad egg or something's happened to your egg, it's kind of a good habit to just do 1 at a time, just in case something has gone wrong. But also if you catch a bit of shell or something in your egg, you can scoop it out with your shell. Shell
attracts
to shell. But it's a lot easier to do it 1 by 1 if you've got kind of 10 eggs in a bowl and you're chasing around one bit of shell around 10 eggs.
I've done that so many times, it's so embarrassing.
It's very difficult.
It makes you look very silly as well.
It does make you look very silly. So we've got 3 eggs. 3 eggs.
So 3 eggs for scrambled eggs, for example. That's like on the bigger side of a portion for eggs. You could also do a 2-egg scramble. That's like if you're not super hungry with a slice of toast or something. Maddie's going to use a fork if I can just grab some salt. I feel like everyone gets very divided about when you add the salt. For me, I've done it both ways. I've added salt before, I've added it after. It never makes much of a difference. So I'm going to do, as a rule of thumb, a pinch of salt per egg. I'm going to just ditch this as well.
And again, yeah, I'm doing the same as Mill. I'm doing the same as Mill should be doing. Very, very slow whisk. You don't want a super amount of bubbles. We want like a nice rich, not too frothy egg.
So, is this a good moment to talk about big pinch, small pinch?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to do So,
is it
you probably heard me talking...
5-fingered pinch or is it a 2-fingered
pinch?
pinch?
Good point. So, when I say a little pinch, it's quite a random amount. But for me, it's just a little 2-finger pinch. So, just tiny amount, like half a gram or something. When I say medium pinch, that's 3 fingers. You can see it's significantly more. And then a big pinch, oh my gosh, have I got enough?
You've run out of salt.
Big pinch, 4 fingers. So they're quite different between all of them. That's
when
that's
see
when I
chefs
say
in the restaurants, that's them going
a 4-finger pinch.
Yeah, 4-finger pinch.
So this one is where something is like really close in seasoning. You don't need very much, just a little pinch. This is like you're way off, and then this is, oh my god, it's
when
not had any salt at all, or a giant pot of soup or something.
Yeah.
So whoop, I'm gonna do small pinch per egg. Quite important. So eggs are very bland on their own. So if you do too much salt, it'll taste like salt. If you don't do enough, it'll taste of nothing. So you want to go a nice middle ground.
Medium. And people always can salt on the table as well if they want. So this is just to take the eggs from nothing to something, but not going like full whole hog of seasoning.
And we're also using unsalted butter later on, so it will kind of balance out the little bit of extra richness from the butter. Will tone down the seasoning a little bit. The other thing I like to add salt at this point. It's just because it helps to break down your eggs. So without doing so much whisking, you'll go from this very gloopy looking thing to something that's a little bit more watery. So I'll show you in just a sec. So 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, ma'am.
And it helps as well if you have got dry fingers, which I haven't, but you'll see later on why. Because otherwise you end up with... Oh, no, I'm not going to do that.
Don't do that.
Can't upset the salt balance.
Thanks, madam. The salt perfection.
So I'm not going like a high whoop whoop because that's going to start to whip in a lot there. So I'm just going to mix it to break down my eggs.
Mine's already done.
Oh, very speedy.
Just a good job.
And you can see on Maddie's one, there are like barely any bubbles because she's not whipping air into it, she's just mixing it to combine all the eggs. So already it's starting to get nice and silky. And I think most people really rush the stage and they end up with just big streaks of egg white. Take your time. I've even seen people sieve their eggs. That's very much overkill. You don't need to do that. But just mix it for another 10 seconds than you think maybe.
And you'll see your
And now it's already looking like
very nice
water, which is great. That's where we want to be. So at this point, if you're doing a 2-egg scramble, you can get about 20 grams of butter. That's sort of like a big tablespoon. We're going to go a little bit more because we're doing a 3-egg. So I'm going to show you.
I'll do the slow.
You want to do slow?
The fast.
All right. So I'll show you the quick scramble, and this is when you're in a bit of a rush and you just need to have like lunch on a plate in seconds. Nice green salad and
scones in the
bread.
oven, and you're ready to go. You want eggs ready when your scones come out in maybe 8 minutes.
All right. So I'm going to go over here for quick scramble, and Maddie is going to be using a slightly deeper pan for the slow one.
For the slow
So this is good because you
scramble.
can just keep on mixing. It's not going to slosh up the sides. Whereas this one, all I'm going to be doing is basically mimicking making an omelette, except I'm just going to keep on mixing. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or something, and then it'll basically be done. Right, so we're going to put ours on a medium heat. It's on the lower side if you're unsure. So we just want our butter to foam, get a little bit bubbly, but not brown, not be smoking.
So we've both got 10 grams of butter per egg. So for us, 30 grams each. This can be butter from the heart, but that's just a good gauge. If you're unsure about what the right type is, right amount is, sometimes too much butter is a thing, particularly for eggs. It can you can get like eggs
Very
swimming
richy.
in butter sauce, which is not very nice.
Very
so
French.
yes, it is very French. So 10 grams is plenty.
And these ones are going to turn out so custardy. They'll almost be like, it's almost like you've added cream to it, and you can add extra cream if you want to, but honestly, you don't really need to.
You absolutely don't. Like, the slower the scramble, the creamier it is at the end, and it is, if you've got the time and you're making yourself a really nice breakfast scramble, this is definitely the one to do.
Very luxurious. Yeah. So this one is your weekend scramble. Maddie's going to have it on the low side of medium, so
I'm just going to be here patiently.
5 or 6 out of 14 on our hob, whereas I'm going to have mine 10 to 12 on the higher side, and I want this to have a very quick sizzle when it hits the pot, and then it's just going to calm down, and then I'm just going to be drawing my spatula through it until I have a very quick scramble. So this is the point where you also want to get your bowls ready. Eggs will wait for nobody.
Okay.
Not so much Maddie's ones because she'll be here stirring for a little while.
10 years.
But I will get mine ready for later on. And you can see it now looks like water, which means the salt has done its job. Just going to get rid of this.
Are you going to be viciously scrambling? Should I?
Fairly vicious, a little small
out
vicious.
Of the shot for a little bit. You can just go hard on your eggs.
Right, so this is at this foaming stage. That's kind of where Maddie wants to be when she comes to cooking her eggs. I want mine a touch hotter because I want this to move really fast.
Can I very briefly interrupt?
Of course. I'm going to turn this off then.
Both the scones and the soda bread have had about 10 minutes each, and I'm going to rotate them. The scones look very close, like maybe 2 to 3 minutes.
All right.
And the soda bread needs maybe 10 minutes. They're looking
Whoa, look at those.
Good. Look at that nice golden colour.
And once again, browning at the front rather than towards the back, because that's the way our ovens work.
So yeah, ours is very dark on one side. So I'm going to rotate it and give it another 4 to 5 minutes.
Right, back to scrambles. So I've got mine on the sort of medium-high side. The butter is foamed. It's looking good. Maddie's just going to rotate the soda bread as well to make sure it's cooking evenly. So that's about halfway through the cooking.
Yeah, it definitely needs. You can. I don't know if you want to have a look, but it's very soft in the
center. And a little bit shiny, which means it's definitely still very warm.
It still looks wet. So I'm going to give that easily another 10 minutes at a nice high temp.
Right, on to scrambles. So this is going to go in. I'm expecting like a little bit of a sizzle. We'll see what happens. Oh, no sizzle. But the butter went past foaming, so I know it was nice and hot. I'm going to crank this up. And we're going to do this fairly quickly in about a minute or 2. So I'm going to be drawing in all of these little curds that will start to form. Slowly. This is Oh yeah, now it's happening. So eggs, once they start to hit about 60 degrees, they're going to begin to cook. So we're not doing this for hours and hours. It will happen very, very fast. And I'm just doing it slow, but like quite an intentional draw in to make sure I get it all to the center. It's all cooking evenly. And you want to take this off just shy of when it's done. That means you're going to get something that's not too dry in the middle. But of course, if you like a really hard scramble, you can keep on going. I like mine very, very soft, a little bit on the runny side, but whatever floats your boat. Eggs are very personal at the end of the day. So this is now getting to the point where I can draw my spatula through and I can see the bottom. So now I'm going to start moving it really quick. And I am about 10 seconds away from the end of my quick scramble, because it's going to continue ever so slightly to cook in my bowl. So I can see it's shiny, and that's it. It's just about starting to lose its shine, but still soft and runny, which is great. And this one, you can finish off with some black pepper, some Tabasco, some chives or something.
Chives that you've cut earlier. And then in terms of your different types of scrambles, this should be eaten, oh, it's jiggly.
Still
Look
jiggly.
at that, it's not dry, not in pieces. It's got a happy jiggle to it. Now that is a good scramble, even though it was a quick one. And we know that this is going to be a creamier scramble, the slow scramble.
Very, very
That
creamy.
is still a beautiful scramble.
Yeah. So this will continue cooking, but you do want to eat it quite soon, just because it's been cooked in quite a hot pan. It means it's got lots of heat energy kind of trapped within it. We're going to have a little taste now.
We're going to have a little
Yeah, why not?
taste.
While
Just
it's hot and fresh.
You have to eat it while it's fresh, you know?
Them's the rules.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I make Millie cheers everything.
So, not to sort of dig in.
Yeah, not,
but
to,
it's still
not
just
to toot your own horn.
like, it's not, I'm not going to call it runny, but it's just slightly shiny in the center,
Yeah.
which just means it's not fully cooked through. The more you cook them, the drier and the duller they
And
look.
that's where you get those little like pebbles of eggs, which not
It's a little hot, but it's delicious.
Oh yeah.
Very buttery, but it's rich. It's nice. You know, it's a quick meal.
Oh, that's, and I will say the salt is actually, it's pretty bang on. I wouldn't put any more on that.
And I definitely wouldn't have. It's on the buttery side.
It is on the buttery side.
I did
but
measure
it's
slightly
delicious.
with my heart, with a loose scale.
And for our slow version, so this is your quick one. That can go with your quick breads. Really, really simple. Bing, bang, bosh. 10 minutes, you're done. For the slow version, we are doing that just times, slow it down, I don't know, to half, a third, a quarter speed. The slower you go, the better it's going to. So
I would say this for about 20 minutes.
yeah, absolutely.
On a very, very slow Sunday morning.
So in terms of your butter, you're still aiming for the same thing. Like we're still aiming for that kind of frothy stage before our eggs go in, because it just kind of takes a little bit of the fattiness away from it, which will be very soon, she hopes.
So you could continue to cook your butter if you're doing a quick scramble and go slightly on the golden side for your butter.
But
just be
butter.
aware, once you start to cook out the water of the butter, it's going to get very, very hot quite quickly.
Yeah.
So you want to be moving fast. If you're doing a slow scramble, you barely want it hot.
It just needs a little bit. I've just popped up the heat just a tiny bit so we can get it to that nice kind of foaming stage. It's very, very close. I can see the fats have kind of started to separate out anyway. And again, we don't want this to be super, super hot. So it's going to be very quick, and then I'm going to pop it right back down. Slow. We're going to be patient, calm,
This
chilling.
is like your Zen moment on the
Yes.
weekend where you are just practicing
when you've got
peace and
some
calm.
really nice fresh bread that you've made from scratch because Maddie showed you how to one night. And then you've got the perfect eggs to go with. I'm going to let you take it. I'm going to check the scones.
Sure. All right, I will take over Maddie's.
It's on high heat.
Right, I'm going to crank it down. So you just want it foaming hot and bubbly, and then as soon as I put my eggs in, it'll cool it right down. So I'm going to pour this in. Get as much as you can at that point out of your bowl. And then we are just going to be doing a very, very slow, consistent stir. So if you don't stir, you'll get these very, very big curds forming, which is not really what we want for this. This should have almost indistinguishable tiny, tiny pieces of egg. So very, very finely textured and smooth. Okay. Sorry.
All right, that is, I don't know if you can hear that. We can hear it. The timer for our scones has just gone off. So we're going to see what they look like, whether they need 1 to 2 more minutes, but they should be quick. And this has been 13 minutes, so I didn't lie when I said they shouldn't be over 15 minutes.
Oh.
Oh yeah. They should be quick to cook. So the size of them you can see is perfect. I'm touching the top to see it's firm. It's golden all the way around. That's a really good sign. It's golden on the sides, so it's not wet on the sides. It's got really good colour on the bottom as well. So in terms of cookedness, I'm really happy. If you're feeling unsure, if you've accidentally made scones that are like 10 centimetres high, I'm almost certain they'll need more time just to get through to the centre. So that's why you try and keep them all the same size, not too big, so that they cook really, really quickly. If you're uncertain or you're feeling a bit unsure, you can just break apart a scone. I can see it's got like a doughy look all the way through, basically. So something like that. There's no soft bits or liquidy bits. It is shiny because of the cheese, of melted cheese, the best part about it, but it's not liquid in any way. So max 15 minutes, but if you've accidentally made absolute monsters, they for sure can take a little bit more time, maybe up to 5 more minutes. You don't want them drying out too much, but I'm really, really happy with these.
Have I made rocks or?
No, you have made
Are our
beautiful.
enemies safe today?
These should be super, super light in the texture. If you can see it, they're easily pulling apart. They've got a really open crumb, and they're crumbly, right? They're pulling apart easily. If you've over kneaded, at that point you're going to be like struggling to break it apart. It will have really, really kind of tight looking or like smaller bubbles. So these have got really open bubbles. I don't know if that's something you can see at home, but these ones look really, really good. They're nice and moist, and they are best fresh. Definitely best fresh, particularly sweet scones. If you're making sweet scones, they're only good for about half an hour.
Yeah, definitely eat them within, if you wait, they just become harder and harder. So at this point, my eggs are cooking. I can see they're beginning to solidify, and they're actually already becoming a little bit jiggly, and they're definitely looking nice and custardy, but they still need a little bit longer. At this point, it's going to become a point of personal preference. If you like them really, really runny like me, we're going to go another couple more minutes. Maybe a touch longer.
I basically like soup for eggs.
I also like soup for eggs.
We're again, personal preference for your eggs.
But yeah, you can go a little bit longer. They will just begin to dry out the more you cook them. So really, a little on the runny side is great, and they will continue to firm up. So a little bit like some of the other things we've cooked, like bechamel, as they sit, they continue to cook a little bit. These ones are going to get a little bit thicker just as they sit and cook. But yeah, not too far off. This is not the moment where you want to walk away. It's a little like a risotto. You need to stir it all the time to make sure anything that's cooking on the bottom is constantly being lifted up and reincorporated. So let's show the bottom. There's like nothing stuck there. And when I do a quick draw through, I'm starting to see the bottom, which is a good sign these are thickening up quite fast. And there's steam coming off them, so I know they're getting to the point where they're beginning to thicken and cook. But this is kind of like what everyone says not to do when you make a scrambled egg. Sorry, a custard.
A custard.
But that's why we call it custardy eggs, because they're very, very silky. They just have very, very fine curds. So I'm using quite a firm spatula. You could use a wooden spoon. You could even use a metal spoon or something. You just want to make sure it's something that can scrape the bottom of the pan really, really well, so you're not leaving anything behind to get hard and overcooked. Right. So again, it's getting a little bit thicker each time. But it's just a slow, consistent stir. How long have we had this on for now? 5 minutes?
Yeah, maybe.
Not even that long. And to be honest, we could have it on an even lower heat. But this is sort of somewhere in between what we just did, and you could go even slower if you want a really, really silky one. I've seen people do this on a bain-marie, which is a water bath. That is very extreme. I think you can get just as good a results doing it just on the slow side like this one, without having to take such extreme lengths.
Do you want me to stir that while you do your fried eggs?
Sure.
I can stir for 20 years if you like.
You stir for 20 years? All right. So while Maddie stirs my eggs, I'm just going to pop them to the side.
For 20 years.
And move on to fried.
I'm going to do it even slower than you.
All right. I was on 3.
Okay, I'll do it on 2 then.
So fried eggs, as the name suggests, it's like kind of higher heat. It's not going to be a low temp one. So I need it warm enough that it's going to melt the butter. It'll be foamy. And there should be like a slight sizzle when it hits the pan. So I'm going to turn this up to medium-high now. There's a couple of different ways you can go about this. Maybe I'll just talk through them before I start frying, because most eggs cook in a couple of minutes. So you don't want to... minutes, like... Could be 2. You don't want to be messing around. Make sure everything's ready, especially things like toast. I feel very strongly about this. You can't start your eggs before your toast is ready. Because it's happened to me many times.
Millie is an egg enthusiast. If you haven't picked it up already, Millie has the perfect eggs every single day.
So one way you can do it, you can get a pan lid that fits nice and tightly. So this is if you want a set white and a just cooked over the top yolk, still jiggly. Or you can have a runny yolk with a slightly jiggly white, that's no lid. Or if you want a slightly harder yolk, you can just flip it over and then you get easy over. So I'll talk you through a couple of those options first. If I can steal that. So I'm now going to get my butter in the pan. Again, I've got 1 egg, so I need about 10 grams of butter. If you don't have butter, you could use something like olive oil. The flavour is quite lovely as well, so that's also an option. I'm going to crack my egg into my bowl. And try and be gentle here, especially. Like if you are going for a yolk with like a nice gooey center, if you break it, game over before you even started. Yeah. So again, crack nice and gentle on the side of your, on the surface rather than on the side of your bowl. Right, so a good start. So coat the whole of your frying pan, just so that when you drop your egg in, you're not going to get like it sticking halfway across. This is like a nice ceramic coated pan as well, so I know I'm not going to have any difficulty with it sticking. If you're using something like stainless steel, a good amount of fat is also a good place to start, just because eggs are really, really hard to get off and they're very, very fragile. So
you lose half your egg in your pan.
And that is prime, and you might break the yolk, which is even worse. Can't be doing that. I am a bit of an egg fanatic.
You are, you are.
It's my worst trait.
Best breakfast all day. Eggs for dinner is a great dinner though.
It is
I think
good.
like we're gonna
high
have
protein.
A good dinner. Yeah, we're gonna have a great dinner tonight.
You could add like a little bit of cheese to them. We're just adding a little bit of chives, lovely fresh cracked pepper.
Super simple.
I love hot sauce on my eggs, but that's just because that's the way
classic.
I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can take it many different directions. We've done lovely Indian scrambled eggs, so we've added some chopped pepper, some chopped onions and spices. You could do like Mexican scrambled eggs. Do it with, there's loads of different ways you can do it, just by taking a couple of ingredients and just spinning them in different directions. So starting to melt, it's beginning to foam. Ooh. And I just want this on the higher side just so I get like a nice, well, it depends what you're going for. If you want a very, very pale fried egg, that's like very French.
Yeah,
I like a slightly crispy edge because I think it's got a nice texture.
French.
How are you going with your scramble?
I'm still here.
Let's see the texture.
It's just really, really, really slowly thickening. I know it looks like nothing has changed, but in actual fact, things have changed just at a very, very slow rate.
It looks a little thicker.
So it has been thickening and it has been creating that nice thin layer on the bottom of cooked eggs, but again, low and slow. If you are thinking about your soda bread, my timer says 2 minutes, so I'm thinking yours is going to be about the same, just like a giant scone, so it shouldn't need too much longer to cook, kind of 20-25 minutes depending on your oven and how hot it is.
All right, I think we are there. So it's beginning to foam. You can hear a sort of sizzly noise. Maybe 10 more seconds, just so it's nice and hot before we get started.
In 1 minute, you're going to have to do double eggs, Millie.
That's all right. I can multitask.
You can multitask. Okay.
Okay. I'm calling it. Please sizzle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Lovely. And then I will release you.
Thanks, Mum.
So it will sputter a little bit because eggs are full of water and they're hitting hot fat, but that is normal. And what some people will do, they'll just spoon a little bit of fat over the top just to cook the top a bit more evenly. But I just like to drop the heat a little bit just so it cooks all the way through. You can go like that. So this will give me a slightly crispier egg. You can see I've browned the butter a little bit on the sides, and for me, I just love the flavour of that. But if you want a very, very pale one, you can go much, much lower temp so you don't brown your butter. Or you might add a little bit of oil or something. But this foaminess is what I want to see. And for me, I like a really, really runny yolk.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be cooking this for much longer at all. Fried eggs require all your attention, so make sure you're present. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that fat just to go over the top here. And I think you're almost there.
For me,
you just want to be checking for any jiggly bits of white. To be honest, I don't mind it personally, but if you don't like jiggly white, you're then going to flip it. So this is going to be my beautiful sunny side up egg. I'm going to take this one out and then I'm going to show you how to do an easy over one, which is just flipped for like 5-10 seconds. So get yourself a wide spatula if you have one. Oh, gently does it.
Risky business.
Very risky.
Beautiful.
And now you can season with your salt and pepper if you want, but you can see I've got a very, very ooey gooey runny yolk.
Looks lovely.
If I cut into it. Go on. if you cut into it, you'll see it's still very, very like custardy and runny, but the white was fully set. So for me, that's like
Perfect.
a perfect.
Oh, for me too. And again,
Because I don't like easy over. But I'm going to show you how to do that, just in case you are a fan. I shouldn't need much more butter in here because there's still lots left. So it's quite good if you're doing rounds and rounds.
How's our soft eggs going? Just out of curiosity.
I forgot about that. But because they were off the heat, I lied. I'm so sorry. Because they were off the heat, they haven't even moved. So they're fine. I'm going to keep this.
Taken out my soda bread, so it is quite hot, and yes, I am scared of it. Kind of similar to your scones, so it should have golden all the way around. So not just on your 4 parts, it should be cooked in that center bit as well. So if you're wondering, that bit will be the very, very, very last bit to cook, and it shouldn't take too much longer than your scones because we did do that nice deep score, and you can you see it's separated a bit. Again, if you've got that nice golden all the way over the top and that nice golden all the way to the center of the bottom as well, you should pick it up. It should feel a little bit lighter, and you should be able to hear that it's
slightly
mostly hollow in the center. But for the most part, these should be quick to cook. These shouldn't take any longer than 20-25 minutes depending on your oven. If you are very uncertain, feel free to break it in half. I'm going to leave it just for a little bit because that's going to start to dry out as soon as I break it, and we're going to smother it in butter like real people should.
Yum, yum.
Yeah.
Right, Maddie's going to take over stirring. I'm just going to quickly show you over easy. Because I promised.
You did promise.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just here, I'm back.
So again, nice high heat. I'm going to let that fat kind of wash over it. And we're basically going to cook it exactly how we did before. But once it is 70-80% of the way, I'm going to just flip it very, very briefly just to cook the top. Again, you could just trap that heat with a lid and it will cook it from the top down as well. But maybe you don't have
bare minimum eggs here today.
Whoa. And you can see just how fresh these eggs are because they've actually got this sort of border around the frilly bit of white, and it's clinging very nicely to the yolk. If you've got, if you want to check that your eggs are fresh, you can put them in like kind of a deep bowl of water. If they sink, they are fresh, and if they float, they are not good. But to be honest, in the UK, that's quite unlikely to happen. I've never ever had a bad egg here, but I have in places where like they're farm fresh or something. And you'll know instantly, don't you worry. So this is now almost all the way set. There's just a tiny bit of jiggly white on the top. But I'm going to flip it over now because I want to preserve some of that runniness of the yolk even though we're flipping it over. So you can use like a metal spatula if you want. I tend to use wooden on these pans just to help preserve the surface texture of the pan. If you use metal, you can scrape it. So just be really, really gentle if you are using one.
Whoop. It's a bit easier to do a full flip if you're using a metal.
Yeah, this is a little on the small side.
This is risky.
Whoop.
Yeah.
So literally a couple of seconds just to set that yolk and that last bit of white, and then onto the plate it goes. So eggs are very, very quick and easy. It's not something you need to labor over too much. That's why they're so lovely to have on a weeknight. And if I broke into this, let me grab myself a little spoon or a knife, it should still have a runny yolk.
And I'm still here with the slow eggs. I might have
oh,
to make these slow eggs a little bit faster.
So still runny, but like fully cooked through. Honestly, I would actually probably eat that egg.
Yeah?
Just because of the runny yolk.
There you go.
So partly why this is taking so long to cook is because we're constantly stirring it, so it's never having a chance to build up lots and lots of heat, which is not a bad thing.
No, we're going to be very happy with it. It's going to be the best slow scramble we've ever had.
Bestest one. This is slow food.
It's a slow food, yeah.
So a little bit of salt on each egg. Again, it's barely even a small pinch. And things like chives and stuff are always delicious additions.
Yeah, herbs, cheese, whatever you like.
Right.
Let's we can serve up tonight. How
I'm going to
nice.
serve up, yeah.
I'll just be here. I have just to mix in this last little bit and hopefully get us within the time frame. I've just ever so slightly turned up my heat the tiniest bit. It's still not on anything powerful. I literally went from 4 to 6. So it's still on a low heat and it's still going to be slow. But I'm just trying to show you what a really nice kind of slow scramble does look like in the hopes of, oh yeah, what a beautiful bun.
And this is our beautiful Irish soda bread with that little speckle of wholemeal, which is so lovely. It just gives it this very sweet, nutty flavour. And it's fully cooked all the way through. There's no doughy strip in the bottom, which is great. So I'm just going to break this up.
Lovely. I'm going
and it's nice and hot and
eat
steamy.
That with a crazy amount of butter.
And yeah, with my beautiful scones, because I did a good job this time.
You did a beautiful job.
They've got that nice natural split, so you shouldn't even need to use a knife to get into them. So, leave those at the front.
And Millie's gonna get me a
very close by.
large amount of butter for me to have on some fresh bread.
That, yeah.
Okay, I think these eggs are very close. They just kind of started going from soup to having a little bit more chunks in them. Egg soup to egg custard. You go.
I'm going to crank her up.
I'm going to serve myself some butter and some scones.
So a nice leisurely night. No chopping a million kind of veggies tonight.
It was a no-chop night, wasn't it?
This is a low chop night. Not nothing, but just very, very few things. So you can make kind of something out of nothing if you're making lovely fried eggs or scrambled eggs, and quite an easy way to feed the family. It's probably one of the cheapest animal proteins there is. So if you want to have a nice quick protein dinner, here we are. Right, these are...
That was so loud, I'm so sorry.
I think we are... Honestly, I would eat it here. I'm going to go just about 10 seconds more. So you can turn up the heat if you're really, really impatient, but you have to stir it intensely. Okay, now we're there. So knowing this is going to set further on the bowl, I'm going to pour it out now. And it's actually not necessarily like poured out. I do have to still push it, so I know it's not overcooked. And if you want, and you're sure that, like, if you think it's on the edge of being like too cooked, add a quick splash of cream or a bit of butter and it'll turn it down. So you've joined us for another night of cooking, hopefully a little more leisurely after your long weekend. So thank you so much for joining us. Please, please, please tag us in any pictures you have on Instagram at Cookery School London, hashtag Cook for Victory. We'd love to see all of your creations. We say it every time, but it is very, very gratifying for us.
We've got a beautiful, I would say, oh, that is a very nice, soft scramble here.
And you can see very different textures, but both on the soft side. But this one has got very large pieces of egg, and this is like, you can barely notice any of them.
Beautiful. Send us some photos. I hope you guys could keep up with us tonight, like go tit for tat. If not, you can always watch back. But it was an easier night tonight. You know, we get to enjoy some really fresh, quick bread and some lovely cooked eggs, and instant gratification, I will say.
And no hardcore kneading.
Yeah, and no hardcore kneading, no muscles gained tonight, unfortunately. But we will see you tomorrow for a very lovely night.
Thanks for joining us again. Bon appetit.